So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our 13th webinar of the TAM R&D webinar series. The topic for today's webinar is Introduction and Architecture Overview of Tanzu Kubernetes Grid Service. We'll also try and cover a bit of Tanzu Mission Control in the session today, followed by a demo. So today we have Lakshmi Gayatri Kundam as the presenter for this webinar. She's a software quality architect working with VMware and has a deep knowledge on Kubernetes, Dockers, and containers. So Lakshmi has also presented on Enterprise PKS, which is TKGI now, in one of her earlier TAM webinars, and is also an active VMUG speaker. Lakshmi is also joined by Jitin today from her team, who will be helping us with the Q&A. So if you have any questions in between, put that on the Q&A window that you see on the bottom of your screen. We will be actively monitoring the Q&A. We'll also try and see if we can have 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A in the end if we have time, and where you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly to Lakshmi. We are recording this webinar, so do get in touch with your respective TAMs to get the recording as well as the presentation. Lakshmi, I hope we can share the presentation, right?
Yeah, can you all see my screen?
No, share as in share with the customers. Can we share this
Sure.
presentation with the customers?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so do get in touch with your TAMs to get both the recording as well as the presentation. And also see if you can share this recording with your colleagues who were not able to make it to this webinar today. Yeah, so I think we are good. We can start. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Thanks, Nitin. Thank you all for joining the session. So as Nitin said, we will have an introduction, then move on to the architecture. Then we will see how to create the clusters also in the demo, and then how the HYC UI is going to look different from what we had been seeing so far, and how is vSphere 7 helping us. And then we will move on to Tanzu Mission Control, and the clusters, whatever we had created using a TKG service, we will add it to the TMC, Tanzu Mission Control, and also visualize TMC on how it helps us to manage our Kubernetes clusters. So first and foremost, so let us get deep dived into the market trends at the moment. So this is how, one second. Yeah. So just have a sneak peek into what the market is saying. So last year, we had about the line of business IT spend. For the first time, it exceeded the infrastructure and operations IT cost by 2%. So usually what happens is there's a lot of investment by the organizations in the infrastructure and the operations, but then the line of business IT spend is usually lesser than that. And there is also a prediction by IDC, wherein the market is predicted to build about 500 million apps by 2024. That is 4 years from now. And these apps are going to be using cloud native in one way or the other, either using cloud native tools or the methods, or being built for cloud. And if you see this number, the 500 million apps, that is more than the applications whatever we had built in the last 40 years. So this is the peak in the applications that enterprises are moving to, and this is a huge value. And VMware, if you have noticed the portfolio, whatever we had been building so far with modern applications and cloud native, we are in the journey of there is an acquisitions which are happening from in the past by Pivotal, Wavefront, Cloud Health, Bitnami, Heptio, Bitfusion, and all these acquisitions are helping us build the complete suite so that we are ready by 2024 and even before that, in order to have our journey successful. So with vSphere 7.0, there is a feature which has come in called vSphere with Kubernetes. That is, and that is the most that's important and the biggest innovation in recent times for vSphere. And this feature is not available with the prior versions of vSphere. So we'll have to upgrade to vSphere 7.0 in order to leverage this features with Kubernetes. So what was done was the entire architecture of vSphere has been modified and re-architected in order to make Kubernetes as a platform so that we can build our own applications. And the beauty of this is our virtual machines and the Kubernetes clusters, the nodes and the worker nodes, the master nodes, everything would be sitting in the same cluster. So that is the kind of, we will also show you like how the visualization goes, how it looks, and where do we have these namespaces. Same the constructs, whatever we had with Kubernetes, all those constructs are brought into the vSphere world. So this is a busy slide, just a couple of minutes we can spend on this. So with vSphere 7, what is happening is whatever is required for us to build the modern cloud infrastructure, that is being developed and being provisioned by vSphere 7. So the first and foremost thing is having a streamlined development kind of an environment. So we are giving Tanzu Kubernetes Grid clusters, which are fully conformant. So what does it mean by conformant, right? So for example, you have an X vendor. So they are providing some APIs. These APIs will have to be in such a way that any vendor should be able to support them. So you are not tied up, you're not binded with the particular vendor or something. And also the versions what we have, they're always upstream supported versions. So which means if Kubernetes open source is fixing certain bugs or security issues, then immediately in a very fast track time, we will be able to give another version which has the latest version of Kubernetes. And these builds are asynchronous to vSphere 7 releases. So they are actually put in my VMware account. And then as and how the customers need it, they can absorb those builds. And also the container service, whatever we have, it is actually high performant and it is with security. As we all know, any application which we run inside virtual machine itself is isolated and is protected. Now we are using a virtual machine as the double wall for securing our apps. And that is again a very helpful feature with respect to having enhanced security. And the other one is having agile operations. So the focus has shifted from virtual machines onto the applications. Back days, what we used to do is, if at all we need a web application, we used to have the actual application code installed on VM1, and VM2 used to run the database, and then VM3 used to have some middle layer infrastructure code or something like that. But all these things, what will happen is the focus would be on managing virtual machines. But then going further with the change in the way the applications are being looked at and being built, our focus is more on application. We care about application, but not exactly the mapping between on what virtual machines these applications are running. And also this simplifies, the moment we have application focused, it simplifies the lifecycle management. We need to focus on how we are upgrading our applications, how are the day two operations happening, how is the life cycle happening, how are we able to scale out and scale in. So how are we able to expand as required and shrink when not needed. These operations are very easily built into the system. And the most important thing is the acceleration of innovation. So AI and ML kind of workloads, right? As we know, they run on specific CPUs, and they need a GPU, it is called. So that's when, one second. Sorry. So that is when we'll have to have different namespaces wherein we can have these hardware pools. And these namespaces will be possible with vSphere 7, wherein we can create our own namespaces and provide such hardware pool to the application which is incoming. And there is a best utilization of the hardware, and also the quality whatever we are giving for the time critical apps, and also the resources which are binded by it, even that we can manage using some storage quota, some policies and other things. And in a nutshell, so this is what we need to see. So the namespaces, whatever we have, are nothing but the management boundaries for the user. And we have two kinds of persona. One is a developer persona, and then say the VI admin persona. And vSphere 7 is being given to the customers through the vCloud Foundation. And so vCloud Foundation is nothing but VMware Cloud Foundation services. So that Cloud Foundation services is actually giving us the stack of Tanzu runtime services, infrastructure services, and some futuristic services. And this is how the entire thing is built. So in the next slide, we'll just see how it breaks down to our world. So very simply put, we have a developer and then we have an IT operator. IT operator is very similar to the VI admin role. So as a VI admin, we have access on our infrastructure, we have access on our ESX, on the storage, on the network it has to use. So all these operations are being held by IT operator. The developer only requires some services which will require them to be able to develop a service or push the service into production or be able to put it for a use of other teams. So with that portfolio, what will happen is the IT needs is not what developer needs to worry about. All the IT needs, all the infrastructure that is being provisioned will be given by the IT operator. IT operator will only spawn a namespace and give it to the developer for use. So developer will directly connect to the namespace and then be able to perform the operations or the applications which they want to develop. So this is our typical vSphere where we have vCenter and then we have ESX cluster. vSphere with Kubernetes works with the works on the HADRS enabled cluster. So we'll see that in the next slides. And we have networking, storage, and this is supervisor Kubernetes cluster. So this is nothing but the vSphere pod service that is newly renamed as, wherein the ESX hosts which are being part of the cluster will act like a worker node. See, in the Kubernetes world, right, we have like 3 control planes, and then we can have n number of worker nodes. So the applications will be running as pods on these worker nodes. So in the vSphere pod service, or also supervisor, or also known as supervisor Kubernetes cluster, we will have these ESX hosts act as worker nodes. And this is what I was telling earlier. So on top of this cluster, we can have our own Kubernetes clusters. At the same level, we'll be having virtual machines, and also we can have our own native pods. So these native pods will look like a virtual machine with an application running within them. This is the architecture diagram. So at the bottommost layer, we have the SDDC, that is the software defined data center. And then on the software defined data center, be it a cluster, what we have something called VM operator. So VM operator is, as the name says, right, it is an operator which deals with virtual machines. So if at all there should be an incoming virtual machine, if a VM is getting provisioned or getting created, the DRS is the one that plays the major role in deciding on which ESX host the VM has to be placed. So similar to that, this VM operator, when we are deploying the Kubernetes clusters or pods, so what it does is it will decide on which ESX host the VM has to go. And this is automatic. We don't even have to provision, we don't even have to choose anything. Once we enable workload management, VM operator takes the lead of initial placement and also balancing of the cluster. And it also takes care of certain affinity and anti-affinity rules, because we do not want all the worker VM sitting on one ESX host, or all the master or control plane VM sitting on the same ESX host. And then we have the cluster API. This is open source again. Cluster API is it's called CAPI cluster API. So we have CAPI integration with vSphere with Kubernetes, and that layer is actually bringing in all the intelligence of Kubernetes into the system. And on this, we have Tanzu Kubernetes Grid. So Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, we run it on the same cluster as we have. And as mentioned earlier, vSphere pod service, what it does is the ESX host itself will be used as worker node. So we have a process called Spearlet. So the Spearlet process, like the moment I said Spearlet, you might be thinking of Kubelet, right? So like Kubelet, how it gets pushed on to the worker node. So we are pushing Spearlet to the ESX host. So in the ESX host, so that is when we will be having the ESX be able to talk to each other from the Spearlet. And then we have namespaces on top of this. So when we have pulled all the resources in a single cluster, we will have to have some logical entity of management. So that is where we get namespaces into picture. Like within a cluster, within one HADRS cluster, we can create n number of namespaces. And then on these namespaces, we can either have native pods, just the pods, or we can create the TKG cluster. Here we see that we have one control plane, which is nothing but one master node. And then there are 3 workers or 3 nodes. So the applications or the pods will be getting installed on these workers. And on top of this, on the TKG, within the TKG cluster itself, we can have namespaces. So it is something like Kubernetes on Kubernetes. So the platform is Kubernetes, which is allowing us to build Kubernetes applications again on top. So this is the layering what we have. So in the next slide, we will see how it looks on the H5C UI and how to visualize these namespaces, how do we manage them, those details. So this is workload management, the one which is highlighted in yellow. So to have this, we need to be on vSphere 7. The ESX host, which is being managed by this VC, also have to be vSphere 7.0. For that, once we have vSphere 7.0 VC and ESX, this comes with a license, which is with the vCloud Foundation. And when we enable workload platform, so there are a series of steps which needs to be enabled for workload management. We have a lab for this, which is a hands-on lab for vSphere with Kubernetes. It is a free lab available all the time, 24/7. You can just register and take that lab whenever you have you want to gain more insights into this. And it clearly explains like what are the entities which are required for us to enable the workload management. And once the workload management is enabled, so in the menu, we will be seeing this workload management. Once it is enabled, we have this kind of a view where we see the namespaces, clusters, and updates. So the screenshot, what you are seeing here is a pre-created test bed. So that is when the moment we have enabled, I mean, you're seeing that the namespaces are already populated, right? Because they were already created. So this namespace called demo is what we have created for today's presentation. And then there is a cluster, which is the config status is what tells you whether the Kubernetes is ready to be used on this particular cluster. When we enable WCP or the workload management, we see 3 virtual machines coming into the cluster. So these 3 virtual machines are like supervisor control plane VMs. 3 of these are nothing but the 3 master control planes of the Kubernetes itself, which is actually sitting inside the cluster. So these are 3 virtual machines which get deployed on the cluster, and these will be the entry point for us to get into the cluster. Because for the developer, right, we don't have to give access to our entire vCenter. We will just have to create an SSO user for them and with lowered privileges, and they will be able to access using kubectl plugin. So using kubectl plugin, kubectl has a vSphere plugin now, and when we connect to one of these control plane VMs, we will have the IP address whatever we get. So we can get to the IP address of that, and then we see a screen like this. So this screen, what it does is, for us to get access to the Kubernetes cluster, we need to have some CLI tools. Just like how we connect to Kubernetes cluster using kubectl, very similar to that, we have wrapped up kubectl and added the vSphere intelligence into that. Because when we want to log in using kubectl vSphere login. So the plugin has to understand that it is talking to vSphere, and it has to accept the vSphere, the vCenter name, username, and password. So these details, all the steps on how we will have to get it, once you open the web browser page for the master VM, we can see all that. And depending upon the operating system, there are 3 operating systems which are supported. So based on that, we will have to download the CLI plugin onto the client machine. And from the client machine, the steps are listed on this web browser page, and also there is a short running video on the same page, which will help the user to understand what are the steps which needs to be performed in order to log into the clusters, which got created by enabling workload platform. Now, after doing all this, once we get right, we need to have, we need to create our own TKG cluster. So in order to do that, generally in Kubernetes, what we do, we use kubectl, and then we'll say like create -f and then say pod.yaml or something. So what it does is it reads the pod.yaml and then it creates the declarative state for us. So declarative state is always mentioned in the YAML, like it says that, you know, this is what I want. And then based on that, Kubernetes does minor changes, and then it keeps making some changes till the declarative state is reached. Now, this is a sample YAML file. This sample file is also documented in a VMware docs for vSphere 7 with Kubernetes. So this is a sample from there. So what it says is, so this is just the YAML file, you have to name it. And we have something called API version and kind. So there are certain parameters here which we shouldn't change. So we should use it as is. And then the metadata name is actually saying that TKG demo. So this is the name what we give for the Tanzu Kubernetes cluster. This is the name of our cluster, which we have given here. And then we have a spec. The spec topology has two main things. One is the control plane VM. The other one is the worker VM. So control plane VMs, we'll have three. So usually multi-master is very common when we create Kubernetes cluster. Unless and until it is for learning or development purpose, we don't use one master, because if the master node goes down, then there is no availability of the cluster itself. So we lose the entire thing. So that is when it is best recommended to have 3 control plane VMs. And the next one here says the class. So the class, which here it reads as best effort x small. So when we are creating TKG clusters, we can view what are the available classes using kubectl get virtual machine classes. So there are a bunch of classes. Each class comes with its own compute requirements. Say if it is x small, right, it will create master VMs with 2 GB RAM and 2 CPUs, something like that. If it is large, then the requirements are huge. So depending upon our workload and how much we think the requirement would be there on the CPU, memory, and also the hard disk, we will have to choose the appropriate class here. So this class is for the nodes, master node, this under the control plane, whatever we see. The next one is the storage class. So storage class because we are using vSphere, we are at an advantage wherein we can either use vSAN storage, or we can use VMFS storage, or we can use NFS, any storage which is commonly seen at the cluster level. The moment if I say it is commonly seen at cluster level, which means all the ESX hosts have access to write to that data store. So any of this data store, we can create a profile. One data store or the n number of data stores. We can have a profile created, and then this is nothing but the storage profile which is created, and then we are passing the storage profile name to the storage class. And sometimes it can happen that the control plane VM can use one storage class and the worker VM can use a different storage class. So this is again depending upon what is available, how are the resources placed on the vCenter. And here we are having 2 worker nodes, and the class we have chosen best effort xmol because these are very tiny, which is fast to deploy them. And then we are using the same vSAN storage profile. And this is interesting. So as we know, Kubernetes releases are very, very rapid. So the version, whatever we had used at the beginning of this year may not be the latest anymore in August. So that is the reason we'll have to always keep ourselves up to date with the Kubernetes version also. So that is when, so currently you see that the version is 17.7. So 18 is also available. So the version name is what we need to mention here. And then these are certain networking related stuff. So there's no need to change. You can use the sample as is. Anyway, we'll share this PPT also. So we are using Calico, and then we have some CIDR blocks defined for deploying pods and also for the deploying services. And with this YAML, what we are going to do is we are going to run a command called kubectl create-f, kubectl create-f, the name of the YAML file, and then -n demo. So this -n demo is nothing but N represents the name of the namespace. So in the previous slide, we have a namespace called demo that we saw on the workload platform main page. So that we are going to, on that particular namespace is what we are going to create. So in the HYC UI, whenever we create a namespace, it will look like this. And then when a TKG demo is executed and the cluster is getting created, so this is the icon what you notice, this hive kind of symbol. So with this, what is going to happen is, this means it is a cluster. It's a Kubernetes cluster. And then when you see this particular command saying that the Tanzu Kubernetes cluster run Tanzu VMware.com TKG demo, whatever is the name you provide, got created, which means it is, the command has been successfully executed and has been submitted to vCenter. And this command, we run it from the client. We are not even accessing the VC UI and then trying to do any operations there. Everything is through CLI. In case there is any error with respect to YAML, or in case we have missed any parameter, the error message will be thrown at the same level, and it clearly states that either some mapping is not correct, or we missed some essential key which needs to be given. So at that stage, we need to check the YAML. And YAML is very sensitive, so we need to be careful with the spaces and the alignment of what we write. And when we execute this, if you recall in the previous slide, we said we want 3 control planes and 2 workers. So now when we just hit enter, we started seeing that there is a new, there is a TKG demo control plane VM which is getting created. So the name of this, of the control plane VM, it takes it from the cluster itself. So, and then it adds, depending upon if it's a control plane VM or a worker VM, it's appends the string to the name of it. And then this is a randomly created string in order to maintain the uniqueness of the name of it. And so this started creating. So what we expect to see here, we expect to see 3 control planes and 2 worker nodes here. So we have a quick demo, which we'll see. We didn't want to put demos at the end, so we actually brought the demo here, and next demo would be on TMC. So once we have executed, then slowly what will happen is the control plane VMs will start getting created. So in the previous slide, we saw that first one control plane VM has come. And then slowly the second control plane VM, and also at the same time, while the control plane VMs are getting ready, after the first one gets ready, we also start creating the worker nodes. So the naming convention should help us determine which is control plane and which is worker. So the TKG-demo-control-plane is the master VM, also known as a control plane VM. And when there is a worker, it is nothing but it's a worker VM, master and worker. And in the YAML file, we mentioned that we need 3 control plane VMs and 2 workers. And if the recent task is looked at, right, so we are seeing that some VMs are getting reconfigured, some VMs are getting created. So when we are doing from CLI, VM operator is the one that will create these VMs and place these VMs on ESX hosts. So in the YAML file, if you have noticed, we didn't say anything about what ESX host it has to use or any details like that. So it picks the ESX host from the cluster on which we have prepared the workload management. So, and we will have IP addresses depending upon whatever the network we have chosen. In this example, we are using NSX-T as the backend networking. And these VMs, all the TKG control plane VM, these are built using Photon. So Photon is Photon uses Photon is our VMware's own operating system. And then we are using Photon with the Kubernetes in order to build the Kubernetes artifacts into that. And using the kubectl, once we log in, we will be able to see what are the virtual machines in the demo. -n demo is again what we want to see in the demo namespace. If we don't pass the namespace, what will happen is by default, the query goes into the default namespace. And but default namespace is not what we have created. So it is good practice to always note down what is the namespace we have created and where our clusters are, and pass it while executing the commands. So here, if you see, we have kubectl get virtual machines -n demo, and then we are seeing 3 control plane VMs and 2 workers. And this is exactly what we had asked for in the YAML file. We asked for 3 control planes and 2 workers. And the age also, you can see the age is nothing but the uptime of the VM. I mean, from the time this VM has been up and running, we are recording the time there. So as you can see, the first VM that has come is this control plane VM, which is the third one, which is 14 minutes back it has come. And then while this one has it was ready, at the same time the workers also got deployed. There is a reasoning why we also deploy workers instead of waiting for all 3, because for the user, even if there is like one worker ready, they will be able to proceed with using the cluster. So applications, the pods can be provisioned, the daemon sets can be created, the replica sets can be created, services can be deployed. So that is the reason we don't wait for all the control plane VMs to get created and join the quorum and start. So as soon as the workers are ready, the cluster state would be like active, and the phase will be running. And this is the CRD called Tanzu Kubernetes cluster, or you can also use it in short like TKC, which says that 3 control plane VMs, 2 worker VMs have been running since 15 minutes, and then the phase of it is running. So the running state is comes in when the Kubernetes the cluster is ready to use. Otherwise, we will see the phase as creating phase. So creating phase in the sense it is still not ready, it is getting created. So very quickly when we create such clusters, we will see the status coming into the running state. So these are the 5 virtual machines which we have created with the demo, and all this creation happened from the YAML file. So we created a YAML file and applied the YAML file, and we have all the virtual machines getting created. Again, this is namespace, this is the Kubernetes cluster, and these are the entities within that. Yeah, and let us see how to even check for virtual machine. This is a command what we saw on the shell also. So we can use kubectl get virtual machines -n demo. So native Kubernetes have some resources on which we can run get. But on the vSphere Kubernetes, what we have added additional resources which can be used. And the details of all this we have documented, and what we can use for seeing the classes that we like get virtual machine classes, and what are the virtual machine images. So all these details we can just have these commands run and capture the output. So this is what we had seen. And now coming to the Tanzu mission control. So what we had seen now is we had on the workload platform enabled vCenter, we had created a TKG cluster. Now Tanzu mission control, why we use it is, this is for managing Kubernetes clusters across clouds. So the best part is we will be able to manage clusters which are on AWS, which are on Azure, which are on GCP, and also which are on vSphere. So now the cluster, whatever we had created, the TKG demo cluster, that we will see how to add it to the Tanzu mission control, and what are the things which Tanzu mission control will help us with the additional features what it has. So this is a view of Tanzu mission control, and then we have certain cluster groups, and also this is a SaaS offering. And once we have once we buy this, we can create for each users, we can for a set of users we can create orgs. So within an org, we have different users who are participating users and who can have some permissions on how TMC will be used. So admin is a person who will have all the permissions which are required. So definitely we may not have everybody as admin. Like 1 or 2 roles would be having admin privilege, but rest of them would be users. So in this Tanzu mission control, what you are seeing is a user view, not an admin view. So as a user, we'll see what all things can be done. So currently in the clusters, we are seeing that there are n number of clusters which are already added. And these clusters have been created using vSphere. So how we can differentiate is, if you see the provider name here, we see vSphere as the provider name, and this is the name of the TKG cluster. This is the version of Kubernetes which was used. If we are using 1.17.7, it will show as 1.17.7. If it is 17.8, then the same thing is rendered here, and similarly with 18 also. And this is the allocated memory and allocated CPU. This is for the cluster. And it's a TMC which is running in cloud. So we are able to see what is how our clusters are performing on vSphere. At least in the screenshot you are seeing is vSphere. And then we can create cluster groups also. Currently we have added everything into the default group. And TMC has a very good automation tool. We can go to this automation center, and then there is TMC CLI. And it's very easy to just install on Windows or Linux machine, and then we can create commands to automatically add clusters and other details. So we also have policies and inspections. So inspections is an important thing. I will cover that in this demo itself. So we'll see why inspections are required. The cluster, whatever we had created using TKG, that we are adding to TMC. So if you have noticed here, we will have 2 options. One is create a cluster and attach a cluster. So we can either create a cluster from TMC itself, which is possible when you have a clouds connected to this. And then the other one, you'll have to attach a cluster. So attach a cluster means the cluster has been already created, and we are trying to add the cluster to Tanzu mission control. So let's see how to do it from the UI. For the same UI operation, we have APIs also. We have CLIs, which can be used. So in the attached cluster, first we need to give the name of the cluster, like how we want to show it in the Tanzu mission control, and then choose the cluster group, whichever is required, and have an appropriate description field. So description field is again for us to easily know like what is the purpose of that cluster which we are adding and other things. And then when we hit enter, we see the command which says that this link expires in 48 minutes, and this installs the cluster agent extensions on your namespace named vmware-system-tmc. So when we run this, copy this command and then run. So all the required resources or the pods or replica sets or collectors, everything gets installed or created within the namespace called vmware-system-tmc. This is the namespace. So let us see. So this is a command what TMC generated for us. And at this stage, we should know that TMC does not know where our cluster is. So we just gave a name of the cluster, and then we mentioned on which group it has to go. And then now we have copied the entire command in the previous screen. That command we have copied, and then we pass the kube config for the TKG demo config. I mean, whatever is the cluster which we have created, right? So in that, if we see, the first thing what it did is it created a namespace called VMware-system-tmc. So on this namespace, we won't create anything. And it also created a bunch of custom resources, secrets, roles, and PSP. PSP is pod security policy, extensions, everything it has created. When you see the screen and this output, it means that the creation has been successful, and you have, and we will see what is the status of them. So this was the command which we took from TMC, and then we have executed on our cluster. Now to check any of the resources, we need to use get. So we'll see what are the namespaces first. And we see a new namespace called VMware System TMC, which is 50 seconds old, which it just got created. And now let us see the pods also with the namespace VMware System TMC. So this will tell us like what are the pods have got into this namespace, which are sending the data back to the transmission control. And this will help us to even monitor the health, the compliance, and what is the version of the cluster it is running over a period of time, right? When we have large number of clusters which are spread across on premises or on the vSphere platform or in Azure, GCP, Cloud, OpenShift, it becomes very difficult to have a single view of what is happening, on which cluster. So that's when TMC is the best solution what we have. It gives a single pane of glass for all the Kubernetes clusters, health, conformance, and also on automation. So we see the pod status here, and these are up since a few seconds. Now let's come back. So earlier in the screen, we did not had TKG-demo. So this one, right? So now we have added, by running that command, the TKG cluster, whatever we have created, has come on to the transmission control. So this was the name of it, what we had added with. So if we look into that, so in the YAML file again, we have created with the Kubernetes version of 1.17.7, and we had 3 control plane VMs and 2 workers. And also certain pods and namespace details. This includes system namespaces also. So all these details will be showing, and also the most important thing is it will show the health of the cluster. And also it shows the health of certain agents and extensions also. And the resources what the cluster is utilizing at the moment, even that is listed on this. Label gets created automatically. And then for the cluster, we can also see what are the nodes which are created. And these are the 8 namespaces which are there. So we are able to see all the namespaces. The next is inspections. So in inspections, what happens is, 1 second. Yeah, so in inspections, we have 3 types. So inspection is nothing but it's a lightweight conformance test, because we are running Kubernetes, right? It is very important that we make sure that our Kubernetes cluster is not having any vulnerability or any critical vulnerability or anything which is which needs to be fixed at the earliest. So these kind of conformance tests are embedded into transmission control. We just need to select whatever cluster we want, and then we will be able to run 3 types of inspections. One is a conformance inspection. The other one is CIS benchmark, which is again open source and published by Kubernetes community itself. And the other one is a light conformance. So this light conformance has a fewer number of end-to-end tests. So these tests are run against our Kubernetes cluster, and then it will tell us if we have if anything needs attention on the cluster. And again, this is the automation center what we have, where all the automations can be done. This is the administration pane, and if any of the inspections are previously run, we will be able to view them from the inspection tab. Currently, with the view, what we have is we have gone to a particular Kubernetes cluster and then looking for inspections here. But then generally also, if we see inspections, it will list out all the Kubernetes clusters scan reports if it were run previously. Yeah. And as we said, right, Tanzu Mission Control is for supporting clusters on multi-cloud. So this is just one snippet on that we can run, we can manage clusters from AWS, Azure, and this is GCP and vSphere also at the same level. And it is easy for us to figure out if anything needs attention, right? You will have a blob here, and then we can go and figure out like why there is an issue or why it is less, and also gives a complete overview of what are the versions which we are using. So GKE's version will have that also prefixed in the version number. So we read it from there and display it as is. And also the allocated memory and CPU details are there. In case any of the clusters are shooting above, we'll be able to figure out. And also at this view itself, we know how many nodes are there. So depending upon, say for example, you have 4 nodes, right? And it's a 5%. So this cluster does not have any alert or anything. And in case you have, and if this becomes like 95% and then you have 4 nodes, we know that the number of nodes what we have on this cluster are not enough, and automatically the more nodes have to be added. So those provisioning and automations also we'll be able to do it on the cloud. Yeah, so with this we open for Q&A. Yeah, we have 10 minutes, and then I'll also take a look at the Q&A window if there are any questions which are open.
Sure, Lakshmi. So Jitin has helped answering most of the questions. We have 2 more questions. Okay. So is there a way we can monitor the container deployed or removed from K8, something like compute and storage?
Yeah, we have a container deployed or removed. I think they mean I think it is a pod or something is what they mean. So we have a lot of monitoring tools for this. In fact, the Tanzu observability Wavefront also can be used for monitoring. And that Tanzu observability uses Prometheus in fact internally. So Prometheus is known for monitoring any of this Kubernetes applications, and if we want to monitor the nodes also, removal of addition of nodes, even that pointer can be handled.
Okay.
So next question we have is the lifecycle management of supervisor cluster is normal Kubernetes management. So the lifecycle management, so the Kubernetes clusters, whatever we have created on the supervisor cluster, whatever Kubernetes we have, right? So that also we will have like a normal Kubernetes management only. We will have a newer version available in the H5C UI. You can actually see that an update available kind of thing, just like how VMware Update Manager works. And then once we select what are the clusters we want to upgrade, we can select and start the upgrade process. So automatically from the H5C UI itself, lifecycle management and upgrades can be taken care. Yeah. Way to create cluster initially to build Kubernetes cluster. So this depends again on the usage. So in case we do it in the TKGI, we will be able to run privileged pods, and we will be able to take the best use of scaling up as much as possible. In the supervisor cluster, what happens is when we create a Kubernetes cluster, as we mentioned, right, the ESX hosts become worker nodes. So which means how many ever ESX hosts you have, those many workers are there in the cluster. If we have a 32 host cluster, then we will have 32 workers. And as per Kubernetes limits, each worker can have only up to 110 pods. It is not recommended to have more than 110. So with 32 hosts, we can only go up to 32 into 110. But if at all we think that our application needs to be more scalable, and we should not have any restrictions on the nodes, then it is recommended to use it on the TKGI. And also TKGI gives you more flexibility with respect to having more conformant, and it's quick to migrate to the newer versions. The rolling upgrades are there, and scale out is also pretty simple in managing that. So depending upon the usage, we can choose where we want to build the Kubernetes cluster.
So there's a question that can you talk about difference between vSphere pod and pod which is deployed by workload cluster? I think he's talking about the guest cluster.
Mm-hmm.
and their use cases.
Okay.
So difference between vSphere
Okay.
with native pods and guest cluster.
Yeah, so vSphere pod is nothing but native pod only, and then so that pod, how it looks is it looks like a virtual machine. So like we have cluster limits, right? So if you have like a cluster can support up to 8,000 VMs, so these vSphere pods will be available there, and they have a IP address and other things. So this vSphere pod, even if you do a pod via TKG or you are doing a pod via vSphere, the main difference what we see is with respect to the networking what it uses, because vSphere pod uses NSXT networking, and the workload cluster pod, it will be using Calico. In the YAML file, if we recall, we mentioned the network spec we mentioned as Calico. So that will be using Calico, and Calico is also scalable. NSX resources again depends upon how many edges we have, what is the edge cluster that is configured, because we know that in edge cluster it's all HA high availability. It's like active passive type of deployments, right? With respect to edges. So those things we will come into picture, but basically if we are not looking at scale, then the pod can run either natively on vSphere or it can run inside the TKG also. It is one and the same. But the pods which are run on TKGI, we won't be able to see it. See as in the H5C UI, you won't see it like a pod, but using kubectl get pods from the command line, from the CLI, you will be able to check that. So visually, it won't be seen if it is on TKGI.
Okay. And Lakshmi, what will be the CNS, cloud native storage, in the case of guest cluster? Does it have to be vSAN? Is it mandatory? Or...
Nitin, that's a good question. So vSAN is not mandatory. If vSAN is available, we can have. So usually what we do is any shared storage, we will be able to create a storage profile for that. And that storage profile, it is what we give it at the time of enabling workload platform. So if you have VMFS storage or NFS storage also, right, or iSCSI, as long as the cluster can see the storage, we will be able to use it for workload platform.
Okay.
There is no hard and fast rule that we need to have vSAN only.
But for native pod, vSAN is mandatory, right? Like NSXT,
No, NSXT is for networking, right?
CNI, yeah.
Yeah, it is for the CNI. For storage, if you are asking, then it can be any shared storage. At the cluster level, it should be seen by all
Okay.
the
Both
ESXs.
for native pod as well as guest cluster, it can be any storage, right?
It can be any storage,
Okay,
correct.
got it.
So usually if at all your application is very dependent on hardware or the speed at which the latencies are happening, right? So then you will have to have a high speed storage. Maybe depending upon the throughput and latencies, we can decide that. Yeah.
Okay. Can we
Okay.
run TKG on VMC?
So VMware on cloud that has vSphere 7, has vSphere 7. So that is going to come in very soon.
Yeah, it is not there.
It is not there yet, but once we have vSphere 7 updated on the VMC cloud, right, then we will be able to run TKG. Yeah, next question is, can we have namespaces on the supervisor cluster? Yes, and these namespaces, we can create it from the H5C UI itself. So we can have that segregation.
And supervisor cluster is required both for native pods and guest cluster, right?
Correct, exactly, correct. That is required, yeah. And another question is NSX DC not supported? I'm assuming it is NSX V.
Yeah.
What is being asked. So yeah, that is not supported. The reason being that actually NSXV, we are requesting customers to move to NSXT because NSXT has a lot of great features and it works perfectly for Kubernetes kind of workloads also. It has micro-segmentation, distributed firewalls, and lot of features which we need to run and manage cloud native applications. Yeah, and next question is, what would be the roadmap for PKS? Will it be continued? So as Nitin in the beginning, at the time of introduction, he was saying, right? So now PKS is being called as TKGI, that is Tanzu Kubernetes Grid Integrated, and TKGI is giving a kubectl interface so that we will be able to use it as is. So for the roadmap as in, it is just that the name has been changed to TKGI and it will be available.
Okay.
Yeah, another one is H5C UI Is it the same as, yeah. So the H5C UI is nothing but the HTML UI, because in vSphere 6.7 and 6.5, we used to have two. One was the web client, which was using Flash. The other one was HTML. So in vSphere 7, it is only HTML. We don't have web client. So when I say H5C UI, it means vCenter UI, which is available on 7.0.
Mhm. So Lakshmi, I had a question. Do we support Rancher and OpenShift as the provider on TMC?
On TMC, we support OpenShift.
Okay.
Rancher, I'm not sure. Rancher, we can have it anywhere, right? You mean Rancher as a cloud?
Rancher as a cloud, yeah. If we
No,
have to,
um,
if we have to spin up Kubernetes clusters on Rancher using TMC, can we do that?
Not right now, but OpenShift is there. Rancher, I'll have to check if it
Okay.
is. If it's not in currently, that I can tell.
Okay. Any more questions left?
I think we answered all the questions.
Yeah. Yes, looks like we have answered all the questions. Let me try and unmute everyone so that if there's any question, they can directly ask you.
Okay.
It's already unmuted. So if you still have any questions, can you raise your hand so that I can unmute you? Okay, we have a question. Supervisor cluster should be separate ESXi cluster.
It is not a separate ESXi cluster. So our ESX cluster, whatever we have, right, on the vCenter. So the same thing we can deploy, we can enable workload platform, and we can have both virtual machines, pods, and TKG clusters running at the same level. So we don't need to have a separate one for this. But remember that we need to have ESX 7.0.
Yeah. Dinesh, you can ask your question directly.
Yeah, so we talked about TKG on vSphere 7, but TKG also support on vSphere 6.7 update 3, right? As far as I read. So what are the key differences when we deploy on vSphere 7 versus vSphere 6.7? What we don't get in the previous version?
I'm not very sure on that. I'll have to check if it is as is kind of a thing, or if there is any difference. So Nitin, can you note down his email address so that we can write back?
Sure. Yeah, even I read that we support TKG on vSphere 6.7, but I don't know the difference between
Yeah,
6.7 and
difference.
7.
Yeah, correct. Difference even I'm not sure.
So we will get back to you on
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
Sure, and maybe just last question from my side. So you said that TMC can provision OpenShift cluster, right? So
Yeah.
is that like we can attach today, or we can provision as well?
We can attach today. But
Okay.
provisioning, I think that is also, at the moment we don't, but we can attach a cluster which is on Red Hat OpenShift.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. And we are on time now. Okay. So looks like we are good to close this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lakshmi, for the session. It was really insightful. And thank you all for attending the session, and do get in touch with your respective TAMs to get the recording as well as the presentation. Lakshmi, can you forward me the presentation so that we can send it across?
Sure, I will send it to you, Nitin. And thanks all. Thanks, Nitin, for the opportunity, and thanks, Jitin, for taking care
And
of
thanks, yeah, Jatin, yeah, for the
questions.
Q&A. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.